just like seeing her for the first time.
Years ago, an enormous meteor, vast enough to darken the skies, crashed violently into the heart of the continent. The day of this impact would later be remembered with dread and fear, and humanity came to call it the Fall. The sheer destructive force of the collision shook the land, split mountains, dried rivers, and reshaped entire regions. But the destruction it caused was not the only nightmare. Hidden within that meteor were countless eggs, strange and alien, scattered across the world like seeds of doom. When these eggs hatched, what emerged was not life as humanity knew it, but a swarm of grotesque and terrifying insects, an unending horde that spread in every direction. The creatures wasted no time in revealing their intent. They waged war against humankind with relentless ferocity. Their claws tore through walls, their mandibles ripped apart steel, and their sheer numbers overwhelmed every defensive line. Cities fell one after another, fortresses crumbled, and once prosperous lands were drowned under the tide of crawling nightmares. Humanity tried to resist, but resistance was futile. For every soldier who stood, 10 more were devoured. For every city defended, 3 others vanished into ruin. The insects were not only strong but seemed endless, an army that bred faster than humans could possibly recover. In just a few short years, mankind had lost nearly half of its world. Territories that once carried the legacy of great empires became nesting grounds for the swarm. But then, in the midst of despair, a miracle occurred. Humanity discovered something buried deep within their essence, the power to awaken and forge spiritual contracts. This ability became the turning point in their struggle. Yet, the gift came with strict rules tied to gender. Women awakened their spirits naturally upon reaching adulthood, their power blooming like a hidden seed waiting for its destined time. Men, however, were different. Their awakening only came after forming a spiritual bond with the legendary being, known as the Master of Contracts. It was through this fragile balance that mankind gained the strength to fight back. With the power of contracts, with weapons born from soul and spirit, humans pushed against the tide of destruction. Little by little, they reclaimed ground, built sanctuaries, and forged a new order. The world was still scarred, but the last bastions of human civilization endured. Though small compared to what had once been, this remnant became the beacon of hope, the last stronghold of a race that refused to vanish. Years after the catastrophe, life within these sanctuaries continued, and one such place was the prestigious King Tang Academy. Here, the most gifted youths gathered, chosen to awaken their powers and prepare for the eternal struggle against the swarm. It was during the annual awakening ceremony, a day when students would place their hands upon the ancient magic stone and reveal the spiritual weapon hidden within their souls. The ceremony was sacred, the first true step into adulthood and into the battlefield of destiny. Among the students stood Golan, a young woman filled with nervous excitement. When her turn came, she placed her hands on the glowing stone. A surge of power coursed through her veins, and a radiant light manifested into her hands. Before the astonished gazes of her peers, she summoned a blade sharp and gleaming a rank sea sword. Murmurs spread across the hall, voices of awe mixing with whispers of envy. And a rank weapon was not a small feat. It was proof of formidable talent, yet, instead of joy, Golan's face darkened with frustration. She clenched the weapon tightly, her lips twisting. She had wished for something greater, something beyond ordinary strength. Though others celebrated her success, she could not hide the disappointment that gnawed at her heart. The ceremony continued. One by one, students stepped forward, each uncertain of what destiny had in store. Then came the turn of Shaya, a girl whose quiet demeanor belied her inner strength. With steady hands, she touched the stone, and instantly her body glowed with spiritual radiance. A spear materialized before her, its aura blazing so brightly that even the teacher stepped back in shock. The room erupted in astonishment. Shaya had awakened an S-rank Wapona, rarity so exceptional that many could scarcely believe their eyes. Gasps filled the air, admiration blooming everywhere. Some students whispered about her beauty, now matched with terrifying power, while others could not contain their jealousy. Boys glanced at her with awe, some praising her, though one muttered that it mattered little, as she already had a boyfriend. But Shia's next actions silenced even those whispers. With cold confidence, she approached her boyfriend, her eyes void of affection. "From now on, we're finished," she declared bluntly. She explained that with her S-rank weapon, she could not afford to be tied down to someone weak, someone who would not stand by her side in the same class of power. She ordered him not to look for her again, dismissing him without hesitation. Her words struck like a dagger, and laughter burst from the other students. Their mockery was aimed at the boy she had cast aside, Hanjan, the protagonist. Hanjan stood still as the ridicule surrounded him. Inwardly, his thoughts twisted with bitter clarity. Once, he had adored Shia blindly. Once, he had been her servant, in all but name obedient, loyal, and hopelessly infatuated. He had fulfilled her every whim, endured her commands, and given without ever receiving genuine love in return. But that era was gone. He had seen through her facade, realized the truth. In this age of spiritual contracts, only strength mattered. The voices of mockery grew louder. Some boys called him pathetic. Some girls sneered, reveling in his humiliation. But Han Jian only raised his head, his eyes burning with resolve. "Do you think I cannot awaken something greater than S-rank?" he asked calmly, his voice slicing through their laughter. "Do you not fear that I might rise above all of you?" Shia sneered at him, her lips curling in disdain. She told him such a thing was absurd. S-rank talents were already legendary, let alone anything higher. Did he truly think himself worthy of what only myths spoke of? Then his turn arrived. Han Jian stepped forward, his heart steady as stone. He placed his hands upon the magic stone, but at first, nothing happened. Silence filled the hall. Murmurs broke out. Shia chuckled mockingly, declaring that it was just as she expected. Not only had he failed to reach S-rank, but he had awakened nothing at all. Laughter roared through the students, cruel and unrestrained. But then, the stone erupted in light. A blinding radiance surged from the artifact, so intense that students shielded their eyes. The energy swirled violently, filling the hall with a force unlike anything they had ever felt. Shia's laughter died on her lips, her mockery freezing into horror. Teachers stepped back, stunned. Students gasped, their voices trembling. Something impossible was unfolding before them. From the heart of the stone emerged a revelation, an SS rank, spiritual contract, a rank beyond legends, a power thought unattainable. In centuries of awakenings, none had ever reached such heights. The air grew heavy, the world itself seeming to acknowledge the presence of something transcendent. Shock consumed everyone. Whispers of disbelief echoed. Could this truly be real? If so, Han Jian was no longer just another student. He had become the strongest human alive. Suddenly, the girls who had mocked him moments ago began to change their tune. Their eyes softened, their voices sweetened. They approached him one after another, offering smiles, batting lashes, hinting at affection. Each one vied for his attention, eager to claim a piece of the glory now radiating from him. But Han Jian rejected them all. He had no interest in shallow admiration, in false affection born of greed. He wanted only strength, purpose, and truth. When his system manifested, it revealed his attributes. Information flowed before his eyes, marking the start of a new destiny. At that moment, Shia, his ex-girlfriend, returned like a desperate shadow. Her arrogance was gone, replaced with pitiful pleading. She begged him to forget her harsh words, to consider rekindling what they had before. But Han Jian looked at her with calm indifference. With his new system, he could see her attributes clearly, and what he saw was nothing but inferiority. As she spoke endlessly, he turned away, focused instead on the power now his. Her voice, once the center of his world, had become meaningless. Noise. Finally, he rejected her outright, his words sharp and final. Shia's face twisted in humiliation, but before storming off, she swore it was not over. The tables had turned. Those who once mocked him now feared him. Yet amidst this shift, whispers arose about another girl Swa. Some students scoffed at her, dismissing her as merely a pretty face. They mocked her, saying she would never survive with such a useless contract. Their words cut deep. Sua's eyes filled with tears as she fled, her heart heavy with shame. Lost in her sorrow, she stumbled and collided with Han Jan. She nearly fell, but he caught her, steadying her gently. Embarrassed, she muttered that she was fine, but Han Jan, with his eyes opened by the system, looked deeper. He realized that this girl was no ordinary student. She was one of the ancient deities, yet for some reason, her awakening was marked only as rank E, the lowest of all. He pondered why such divine potential lay hidden behind weakness. Seeing her sadness, he patted her head gently. "Would you like to form an exclusive contract with me?" he asked softly. Jealousy flared instantly among the other girls. They could not bear the idea of someone like Sua being chosen. They mocked her further, their envy igniting conflict. But before the situation escalated, Chen Guangpu, the academy director, appeared. He praised Han Jian's boldness, but cautioned him forming contracts recklessly was dangerous. Someone of his power carried the weight of humanity's future. Sua, too, hesitated. She believed herself unworthy, her low rank an anchor that would drag him down. Then, from the shadows, another figure arrived, Xiao Wu, the guardian of profound Blue City. His presence shook the hall with authority. Xia's eyes lit up, for this man was her godfather. He immediately accused Han Jian of bullying his goddaughter with his newfound power. With arrogance, he declared that no one in the city would dare form a contract with Han Jian and demanded that he humble himself before Xia. Han Jian, however, stood unfazed. He asked if Xia was even worth such effort. His words burned like fire, enraging Xiao Wu. The guardian lashed out, but before his strike could land, the academy director intervened, halting him. He reminded the guardian that attacking an SS awakener would be reckless, even forbidden. Xiao Wu threatened further, declaring that Han Jian must form a contract with Sua as punishment or face destruction. But Han Jian's eyes held no fear. He declared firmly that his choice had already been made. He would form the contract with Swand. No one could change his decision. Sua trembled, apologizing for the trouble she had caused. But Han Jian silenced her gently, telling her she had nothing to regret. He believed in her. He believed she would be his greatest ally. With that, the contract was sealed. Energy enveloped them both, power surging as their souls intertwined. Sua's body glowed brilliantly, the lowly E rank she once bore shattering. Her power soared, climbing past limits, rising higher and higher until she stood reborn as an SS rank existence. The impossible had happened once again. Sua looked at him, tears of gratitude shining in her eyes. She whispered her thanks, her voice trembling around them. Silence reigned. None could deny it now. Han Jian had not only rewritten his own fate, but he had begun reshaping the destiny of the entire world. The protagonist's awakening had shaken the academy and beyond, and people still couldn't stop talking about it. The radiance of his SS rank contract lingered like a memory etched into their minds. Yet, while the students whispered in awe and envy, not everyone was pleased. On the other side, Xia V, the ex-girlfriend, who had once mocked and abandoned him, now seethed with humiliation. Her pride had been trampled beneath his overwhelming rise, and she could not tolerate it. Furiously, she turned to Ju, her godfather and guardian of profound Blue City. With a voice trembling from anger and shame, she complained, "I was humiliated by him in front of everyone. Will I not be compensated for this insult?" Ju's eyes narrowed, but instead of exploding with fury, he smiled faintly, his tone dismissive. He replied coldly that the protagonist had already been punished enough by choosing to form a contract with someone like Sua, who had been mocked as a mere rank E spirit. In Ju's view, this was no blessing, but a curse. Such a partner would drag Han Jian down and make his life in the city far more difficult. Besides, Ju added with a smirk, "I've already arranged an evaluation with the Master of Contracts for you. Xia, that alone will put you back where you belong." Xia's anger softened at his words, her eyes gleaming with sly affection. She leaned closer and, with a tone dripping with suggestion, said that she would repay him with gratitude in their special place. hinting at the pleasures they often shared away from prying eyes. Ju, though a man of authority, could not hide his indulgence. At once, his mind filled with sinful anticipation. Tonight, he thought to himself, will be a night worth remembering. Hours later, in the privacy of his chambers, Ju lounged comfortably. He picked up his phone and scrolled through the latest updates on the city's network. To his delight, he discovered negative rumors spreading about the protagonist. Someone had already posted slander, painting Han Jian in a disgraceful light. The whispers of admiration from earlier now mingled with words of doubt and mockery. Ju's lips curled into satisfaction, his chest swelling with pride at how easily the tides of opinion could be turned. Shia sat beside him, basking in his protection and influence. She praised her godfather endlessly, showering him with flattery. To her, Ju was the embodiment of strength, authority, and cunning. Ju, in turn, took her adoration as his rightful due. In his mind, this was merely the prelude. Public opinion was a weapon, and soon, with the upcoming evaluation, he would reveal to everyone what true cruelty meant. For now, however, he allowed himself to sink into pleasure, enjoying every moment of Shia's company. The next day, the academy cafeteria buzzed with gossip. Students whispered and giggled, their words laced with venom. News of the protagonist and his assistant had spread like wildfire, and few could resist the urge to speak ill of them. At one table sat Han Jian and Sua, quietly eating as the noise surrounded them. Sua lowered her head, guilt twisting her heart. She clenched her fists on her lap, her voice soft with remorse as she apologized. "I'm sorry, it's because of me that you're facing this." But Han Jian only chuckled softly, shaking his head. His gaze was steady, his tone firm yet gentle. "Stop apologizing for everything. You have no reason to carry this weight." He looked at her with sincerity, his eyes cutting through her insecurity. "You are the most beautiful girl in this academy, Sua. Don't let their words make you doubt yourself. Have more confidence." Sua's cheeks flushed with warmth. Her heart trembled at his words, though she hesitated to believe them. Still, Han Jian pressed on with calm assurance. "Today, we eat well. Today, we prepare ourselves. When the evaluation begins, you'll show them your true strength. Ignore those clowns. They'll choke on their words soon enough." As his words settled, a shadow loomed over their table. A tall young man approached, his expression arrogant. "So you're Han Jian," he said. "I've heard people call you a genius. But looking at you now, you don't seem like much." His name was Wang Lumu, the contracted partner of Shia. He was strong, confident, and smug, the kind of man who reveled in looking down on others. Han Jian glanced at him once and then burst into laughter. The sudden sound startled Wang Lumu, his brows furrowed, his pride wounded. "What are you laughing at?" he demanded sharply. Han Jian wiped a tear from his eye, his lips curling into an amused smirk. "Nothing. I just found something very funny." Shia, standing proudly beside, her partner sneered. "Don't lower yourself to his level, Lumu. He's nothing but trash as someone who's already fallen from grace. Soon he'll be exiled, stripped of all dignity. Let's not waste time here. The evaluation awaits us." With that, they strode away, leaving behind a trail of mocking laughter. That very afternoon, the evaluation arena was filled with anticipation. Students gathered, whispers rippling like waves. The air was thick with excitement and dread. A representative stepped forward, his voice booming across the hall. "The evaluation will now begin. This year's test is the hardest yet. Only those who prove themselves worthy will be qualified to advance." He scanned the roster and called the first names: Shia and Wang Lumu. The pair rose confidently, their steps firm as they walked into the vast arena. The crowd hushed, every eye fixed on them. A great iron door creaked open, and from its depths emerged a monstrous insect. Its body was massive, armored like steel, its mandibles clicking with murderous intent. The challenge was simple, yet deadly. Defeat the giant insect. Wang Limu grinned with excitement. His blood boiled at the chance to display his strength. Borrowing Shia's spear, he lunged at the creature with speed and precision. His first strike landed with a sharp clang, piercing the beast's hide, but it was shallow, the damage minimal. He frowned, realizing brute force alone wouldn't suffice. With renewed determination, he tightened his grip and struck again, this time channeling all his strength. The spear cleaved through, slicing the insect in half. Green ichor splattered across the arena floor, and the monster collapsed in two twitching halves. The crowd erupted in cheers. Applause thundered through the stands, voices crying out their names. In the officials' chamber, footage of the battle played live for the Academy's overseers, but not everyone was impressed. Wei Ken, the leader of the first district, scoffed. This insect was weak. Nothing compared to the real ones outside. His professor immediately rebuked him. Don't speak nonsense. This was still a test worth recognition. From the second district, Li Jingwen spoke with sharp critique. As an S-rank spirit, she should have killed it in a single blow. Instead, she was at least 30% weaker than expected. I suspect her spiritual energy is leaking, likely due to an undisciplined lifestyle. The words hung in the air. Ju, sitting silently among them, knew the truth. It was his fault, but he said nothing, letting the judgment pass. Back in the arena, Shia and Wang Lumu basked in the cheers. The announcer declared that they had broken the Academy's record, and the audience roared louder. Many believed no other contestants could surpass their performance. Then the announcer raised his voice again. Next participants, Han Jian and Sua. The hall shifted. Murmurs filled the air as eyes turned to the pair. Han Jian walked calmly, swathed by his side, her steps hesitant, but firm. Together, they stood before the massive door. But as it opened, something unusual happened. Not one enemy emerged, but many. Flying insects, dozens of them, swarmed into the arena, their wings beating with an ominous hum. Sua gasped. This was supposed to be a single opponent. Why are there so many? The audience leaned forward, exhilarated by the unexpected twist. The announcer smirked, explaining to the crowd that the test was tailored to the participants' level. Since Han Jian wields the power of SS rank, he said, it is only natural that his challenge be multiplied. What he didn't reveal was that this was no coincidence. It was arranged beforehand by Ju, who still sought to crush the boy for daring to humiliate his goddaughter. Whispers spread quickly. He messed with the wrong man. Han Jian, however, showed no fear. His gaze sharpened as he summoned the weapon that had awakened with him. Energy flared, a sonic wave bursting forth like a thunderclap. The blast tore through the air, striking the insects' heads with devastating precision. The swarm fell in seconds, their bodies scattering across the arena floor. Gasps filled the stadium. Students stood, jaws open in disbelief. Officials in the chamber leaned forward, stunned. One muttered, "Impossible." He defeated them all in less than 10 seconds. Li Jingwen scowled. Though impressed, he argued that Han Jian had not followed the spirit of the test. The rules had been bent, and besides, the difficulty had been increased unfairly. Ju, forced to cover his unease, dismissed it as a temporary arrangement, insisting that young talents should not set poor examples. Yet in the back of his mind, doubt gnawed at him. How is he this strong? We'll add more next time, he decided grimly. Surely, 10 enemies will be enough. But another official, Wei Sen, spoke differently. Watching Han Jian's composure, he felt satisfaction. He looks far too comfortable. This boy has more to show us. Let's see how far his limits go. The order was given. The test advanced to level 2. The doors creaked again, this time releasing twice the number of enemies as before. The true trial was only just beginning.